then came Friday the 13th was my first movie. And it was cast by a casting director who had put me in a lot of commercials. So she knew me. She knew that I was a reliable kind of chick. And that's how I got into the movies.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So uh did you ever, and I mean obviously I know with your career kind of earlier on, with acting you can kind of go into all avenues of roles. Did you ever expect to be in a heavily horror based role or movie?
Oh, no, not at all. Don't forget, Halloween was really the one that started this whole major slasher type of franchise.
Hmm.
And that had just come out, I guess, what, 1979 or 1980, somewhere along there.
Yeah.
So when we did Friday the 13th, it wasn't even called part two yet. It was actually called Jason because it's
Oh
the first
wow.
time we see him as,
Hmm.
a grown up type of person, sort of a warped grown up person, but a grown up person nevertheless. So we really had no idea that this would happen and it would become this huge franchise. I think I have a poster with all the masks of Jason
That's
behind me,
cool.
and who knew, right? Who
Right,
knew?
exactly. I can imagine back then, because I know part two came out something crazy like 9 months after the first one, which is like such a short space of time. And you could never have guessed back then it would blow to be the franchise it has been.
Oh, absolutely. And it was such on the heels of the very first one that they had us go to a screening room to watch the first one so that we could get a feeling of what the backstory was
Hmm.
and what it was about. And that was kind of funny because about a year after that, I was doing an off-Broadway show with Kevin Bacon from part one. And
Yeah.
we never talked about Friday the 13th, which is just so random.
Yeah. Right. I was going to say, so uh, with regards to Friday the 13th, what was it like on set?
Oh, it was creepy. It was creepy. I mean, I'm a city girl. I'm a New York City girl.
Hmm.
You probably tell by my accent. Now I'm a New York City girl. So everything, my whole life was bright lights, lots of noise, police cars, people screaming at each other on the street, trains rattling overhead. And here I was in Connecticut and everybody else, had gone to camp or, had had a house in the country or, had gotten away. And I had never been away like that before. So
Hmm.
because we were filming mostly at night, it was kind of creepy to walk from where we were filming near the lake up the hill to our cabins because we slept at an actual camp, not in a hotel. So the experience was kind of creepy, but it bonded us all, because we were all in it together. We were all walking up the dark hill together.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, you know, it is one of and I think that's probably why it grabs a lot of people, the franchises, because the set itself is it's such a creepy, almost horror-like atmosphere just to be in a woodland area. So the fact that you guys, even during filming, had to still stay in a log cabin must have been pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it was. And they took full advantage of us when us girls would be going up to our cabins, the guys would be in the woods making snapping noises with twigs and rustling the leaves. So we'd just run up the hill scared to death.
But do you remember the release or what the reception was when Friday the 13th Part 2 was released?
Gosh, I think I was filming Neighbors when it was released. So I was kind of busy. I was doing the off-Broadway
I
show
understand.
with Kevin Bacon, and I was at night, and then during the day, I was filming the movie Neighbors with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, of course. So I have absolutely no memory of the film being released. None of us talked about it. None of us got together to go and see it. It was bizarre. It was as if it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I know that around 81, that was especially a big year where so many slasher horror movies were released. I think The Burning came out. I think Halloween Part 3 also came out that year. So, I can imagine there was a lot of coming on around that time. But to me, I feel like Friday the 13th Part 2 grew as the years are going on. And I think it's probably as big now as it maybe was back in 81, which how does that feel for you knowing that work you did back then, even to this day, is still so heavily admired?
It's kind of cool. I mean, it was totally unexpected. I go to conventions. In fact, I was in London earlier this year, back in February, the end of February, and I was just amazed at the popularity and at the reception, and everybody, including other guests who were there, who
Mhm.
are based in London, they were like, "Oh, you were in part two." I'm like, "Wow, that's kind of weird," but yeah, it is kind of cool because I feel like early in the franchise, a lot of the characters were very real. They were like other teenagers, or other early 20 somethings. So people relate to that.
Yeah.
For my character, they relate to this sort of slightly dorky girl trying to be all, sexed up with this guy in a wheelchair. And it's just kind of like, you can tell, the Vickie is not quite comfortable in the role of trying to be all, ooh la la, let's do this. And I think people sort of identify with us in that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think that that's why, as you said, I think that's why Vicky especially is more you know, people are more fond with her, I think, because it was, especially compared to the first one as well, she was so different. It was more, she had more of a, to me, like a caring, nurturing nature more than, a I'm here to show everybody, on display. So yeah, and and I think that it must have been a really cool time to sort of play that character.
Yeah, it was. It was very all American girl next door. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.